Alright, so here we are, The Legend of the PSP Part 2, and enough people said they wanted me to finish this story from when I was talking about my worst Christmas memory ever, so I figured I'm gonna hop on and tell it, even though I probably shouldn't. You know, I really debated not sharing this, but A, I couldn't leave y'all hanging because that was a huge cliffhanger in video 1, and B, you know what, I'm not even the same person I was 6 years ago, yet alone 12 years ago in the 5th grade, so this should make for nothing but a funny story and should be harmless. So picking up where we left off in the last story, we ended off at Christmas where I got everything a kid could ever want for a PSP, including my first Grand Theft Auto game, except the PSP doesn't work, the screen is shattered, and I can't use any of it. So what do I do instead of just admitting that it's broke so I can get it repaired? I continue on with the lie. There was actually like a little demo CD that came with the PSP, and on it they had videos and music, and it was always the same stuff and never updated obviously because this is before internet was used for massive updates like it is now. So on that CD I actually learned the button strokes without being able to see the screen to listen to the songs that I wanted to listen to. And so like I said, my parents ended up getting me something that like covers the screen so you can open it and close it, and I could always keep the cover closed so nobody could see that the screen was broken, and I could always walk around with it listening to music on my way home. The screen was covered, so my parents thought I had a fully functioning PSP, but little did they know I was just being a genius at that point. So to be honest, this next part is probably the worst thing I've ever done in my life, and if this story was any younger than 12 years, I probably wouldn't tell it, so here we go. So I'm in the 5th grade at this point, and I had moved schools for my 5th grade year, but in the 4th grade I had a really good friend. Of course, since I've moved schools, we don't really see each other that much anymore, but we still go to each other's houses from time to time. And for the purposes of this story, we're just gonna call him John. So this story happened somewhere between the months of January and May because I was still in the 5th grade when it happened, and I remember the house that I was in, so it had to be between January and May, but that's all I remember. And me and John planned to hang out because it had been a while since we had a play date. Now it's important to note that this is the first time I've seen John since he got a PSP, and he actually got one from his family that Christmas, the same Christmas that I got a bunch of stuff that I couldn't use with my PSP. So we get to Friday of whatever week it was, and his mom takes us to the mall, and we both have our PSPs in our hand. We go to GameStop, and back then you could get these skins for your PSP, much like you can do for game systems like the DS now, you know, the ones that just kind of like stick on the back and front. And I remember very specifically, his mom bought me the blue skin, and then she bought John the red skin, and they had some cool lightning design, and in the 5th grade this was just super duper awesome. So now I got a PSP, a really nice looking PSP at that, with a bunch of hooked up stuff and nice games, and I still can't use it, still broken. So we hang out a little bit for that day, play video games, and we actually end up going to my house for the sleepover. And so of course the PSPs are like the new thing at that time because they had just came out like not even a year ago. And remember, to this point, I hadn't told anybody in the world that it's broken. I hadn't told my brothers, my parents, none of my closest friends, including John. I hadn't said a word. So to get around the problem of me not actually being able to use my system, we just played on John's, and I let him play Grand Theft Auto because again, I was just dying to see what this game looked like. We were taking turns, you know, running from the cops and stuff like that because I had just been dying to finally play this game, and I was having such a good time with it. So I remember this part pretty specifically. I was playing the PSP because it was my turn, and I was sitting in a chair next to the bed, and John was starting to doze off a little bit. He was on the bed because, you know, we were young, and he was starting to doze off to sleep a little bit. So I'm still sitting in the chair playing the game, and I remember I'm riding down the street in the motorcycle, and the only thing I don't remember about this story is whether it was premeditated or not. So I don't remember if I was just thinking about it right there and I decided to do it, or if I was thinking about it the day before. I don't know when I came up with it, but I was like, you know what? I'm about to finesse this man for his PSP. Oh my god, this is so terrible. I was like, I'm about to finesse this guy. So I'm young, I had no remorse. I went ahead and made up my mind that I was about to go ahead and score a PSP finally so I could get my hand on this revolutionary piece of technology and take what should have been mine. I sound like this is some evil plan. So I had it pretty well planned out. I waited for John to doze off, and I said, here's what I'm gonna do. we both had skins on our PSP, like I said, the ones that his mom bought us. So I said, I'm gonna take the skin off of my PSP and put it onto his, and I'm gonna take the ones on his and put it onto mine. But you know what was wrong with that is that my screen was broken. So I was like, okay, if he wakes up in the morning and he remembers that I was the last one playing it, and then he grabs the PSP with his skin on it and it's broken, he's gonna be like, yeah, you broke the PSP. And even if he's not smart enough to come up with that, I knew his parents would or my parents would. So I was like, you know, this PSP has to disappear. So I still swapped the skin, and this is late at night, so I can't leave the house or anything. I can't make too much noise. And I swapped the skins on the PSP, and what I did was I had an old book bag in my room full of papers from old elementary school files and just old work that I had done. So I said, okay, this is an old raggedy book bag. I'm going to take this PSP, I'm going to put it in the front cover of that bag, and I'm going to bury it inside with all the papers, because there was a ton of papers from, like, I don't even know, the 4th grade, I guess. There was a ton of papers in there. I'm going to put it in there, I'm going to put it in the top of my closet. Nobody's ever going to find it. That's how I think. What I really should have done was have put it in the trash can and took the trash out and, you know, completely disposed of the evidence. But again, I'm in the 5th grade, and I'm assuming I came up with this on the spot because it was pretty half-baked in hindsight. So I was about to fast forward to the next morning and tell you the whole story there, but as I was telling the story, I just completely remembered what happened. Oh my god, this is diabolical. So the other part of it was, I knew if he woke up in the morning and realized his PSP was missing, that he would realize that I was the last person playing it, and then of course he would accuse me of, you know, losing it, or, you know, maybe even stealing it, or somebody would accuse me of stealing it if they knew I was the last one playing it. So what I did, as John was dozed off, I woke him up and I was like, hey John, look, I'm switching to my PSP right now, okay? And this was after I switched the skins on the PSP. I showed it to him. I was like, I'm switching to my PSP, okay? I'm not playing yours anymore. I think yours is dead. And he was like, all right. But, you know, he was like half awake. He was delirious. So he was just like, all right, and went back to sleep. So for this to have worked without him accusing me of stealing it, I must have like told him I was laying it next to him or I was putting it somewhere. I had to have some kind of receipt to show him that I didn't lose it for when he woke up the next morning, so he didn't accuse me. So whatever I did, it at least tricked him. So we wake up the next morning, and I think we pretty much slept until his mom came because we stayed up pretty late that night. So it was probably about 10 or 11 in the morning, and we woke up. He starts gathering his belongings because his mom is there, and naturally, as he's picking up all his stuff, he starts to realize, hey, where's my PSP? And I was like, I'm not sure. I told you last night. Remember, I told you I switched to mine, and I think I laid it next to you. Did it drop or something? I was playing it off so good. And I was like, yeah, you know, did it drop between the beds? So, of course, we went on a whole manhunt. We, like, lifted the bed up, and we looked all around the room. And, of course, I stayed away from the closet because I know it's actually up there in the top in that book bag. So, long story short, we didn't find it, of course, because I wasn't going to let anybody find it. And this is where stuff got really bad. So remember, he got this for Christmas, and it was around $300 when it came out, which was a lot of money. And so this had to have happened around January or February, because I remember when he did end up telling his mom, she was kind of hysterical because she was saying they just got it for him and it cost him a lot of money. So yeah, this had to be pretty close to then. But anyways, I was trying to do all I could to get him not to say anything while he was still there. So me and him are kind of posted up on the wall, and we're watching our moms talking. They're having a good time, completely oblivious to the evilness that just took place. So I whispered to John and I told him, hey, don't tell your mom you lost your PSP, okay? Or at least don't do it while you're here. Because anytime something bad happens when I have a guest over, my mom blames it on me, and it's just a whole situation, so don't tell, alright? And John agreed, but you could tell it was eating him up inside, because as our moms kept talking and we was sitting there, he started to realize that, hey, you know, this is gonna fall on me. My mom is gonna think I lost the system. So John is starting to tear up and he's turning red, and I'm like, oh shit, he's about to tell. So I was like, John, chill out, chill out. And I probably made the situation worse because I started like pinching his arm and twisting it a little bit, and I was like, bro, chill out, don't tell, bro, I told you not to tell. And then I think that pushed him over the top. He just busted out crying and ran to his mom and told him that he lost the PSP while he was here. So my mom is right there witnessing the whole thing go down, and of course she's like, all right, we're gonna tear this house down until we find it. So, his mom didn't have all day to be there. So his mom and my mom went to my room and they looked for it a little bit. They figured that it had to be somewhere where we were using it. So they lifted up the bed too. They looked around and it's nowhere. It's just not in sight. So his mom has to leave, and she said that, God is going to make it turn up, and this costs us a lot of money, and this is, we're going to find it. This is definitely, we're going to find this, John. So they left the house, and my mom, she probably questioned me a little bit. I don't remember exactly what happened. To be honest, there's kind of a gap in my memory between this moment and when we started looking for it that night. So anyways, later that night is when we all went on the manhunt for it. It was me, my mom, my dad, and I even think my older brother might have helped, but I don't exactly remember. So we started just tearing my room apart because I remember my dad specifically saying, he was like, this damn thing didn't just grow legs and walk away, so it's definitely here. And that scared me because that let me know right there they weren't leaving until they found it, because they knew for a fact if we were just sitting there playing, it had to be in my room, so they were going to search every square inch of it. So we're searching my room like a crime scene, just tearing it apart. And of course, since it wasn't in the obvious places, they just started to look in random places because they were like, it has to be here somewhere. So of course, that led my mom to the closet where she pulled down the book bag because they were just looking everywhere. They were looking everywhere and everything they could find. Pulled down the book bag, put it down, and I saw her reaching for the front cover, and I was like, God damn it, she found it. So she opened it, she got to the front cover, she pulled it out, and she was like, oh, we found it. And so this is where I didn't know what was going to happen, because I was like, okay, well, his skin is still on my PSP, the one that's working. And so if they return that to him and he turns it on, it's going to be broken, and I just don't know what's going to happen to that point. But this is where, and I've never thought about it until I'm telling this story, I think this is the part in the Legend of the PSP where I started to gain one of those GTA wanted levels from my mom. I think she put me on the suspect list, because now that I think about it, what she said was, now we're going to find out which PSP is yours. And why would she say that unless she suspected that I went and swapped them out? And I was like, oh, well, how are we going to do that? And she was like, there's a serial number on the bottom of these PSPs, and it's going to match the one on your box that we got you. I was like, oh my fucking God. I was like, are you shitting me? Because I didn't think about this in the 5th grade. I had no clue. And she was right. There's a serial number right on the bottom of the PSP, and you can match it with the box. And it's so funny because my mom, she doesn't know much about technology today, and I normally have to help them with computers. And this is the second time in the story where my mom has been A1 on technology. And back then, she just for some reason knew all this stuff. So of course, she takes both PSPs, she reads the serial numbers, and it reveals that the one inside the bag was mine, of course. And so they were like, this is your PSP. And at that moment, I just had to hit the panic button. I had one trick left up my sleeve. And I said, well, if that's mine, then how did his skin get on the back of my PSP? And that question took all the heat off me. Like, that was like in GTA where you use a cheat and the wanted level disappears. That's what that was. And the room just went quiet. My dad didn't have anything to say. My mom, my brother, they were all just stumped. And my dad, of course, wanted to give me the benefit of the doubt. And he was like, well, maybe your PSP is better than his or something. Maybe he was trying to steal it. My mom, however, wasn't trying to hear that shit. She didn't believe I was innocent. She just didn't have the evidence to convict me. So she was like, you know what? We're going to tell his mom that we found this on the side of your bed because this looks really sketch right now. And she didn't know if it was me or him, whoever was playing these games. She just didn't know. So she was like, we're going to return this PSP to him, and we're just going to tell him that we found it in the bed. And after she said that, she pressed the on button on this PSP. And by the grace of God, that PSP was dead. I don't know why it was dead. I didn't plan for it to be dead. It was just dead. If she would have turned the screen on right there, it would have showed that it was cracked, and that would have been all the evidence. It would have been like, yep, you tried to steal his PSP, you put yours in here, you were trying to hide the evidence. Oh my God. I don't know. I would probably still be grounded. I'm 22 years old. I would probably still be grounded today. And that was pretty much the end of that phase. They get my PSP back, and they went ahead and took the other one to get back to him. And I remember that night after my parents left, my brother came in my room and he was like, so did you try to steal it? I won't tell anybody. This is my older brother. He's 6 years older than me. And I was like, no, of course not. And like I said, I'm denying it. I haven't told anybody what happened. And so if this happened at the beginning of the year, then I believe it was probably, it was about a good 5 months of me just kind of covering this up afterwards. And I'm talking about to everybody. So there was a situation where I was in school and I stayed after school for whatever reason, and me and my friend were sitting at the stairs and we were playing, well, he was playing PSP. I just had mine with the screen suspiciously closed and I had earphones on it. And I remember him trying to show me some kind of function, and he was like, yeah, your PSP can do it too, look. And he tried to lift the screen, and I pressed down on it because I didn't want him to see it was broken. I was like, nah fam, I'm good, go back. Then there was a situation that summer where my cousin came, and by this point we had actually moved to a new house. And remember that because that's important. So we moved to a new house and my cousin came and he had a PSP as well. So I was faking like I was using mine, and he was on the top of the bunk bed using his, and he was showing me all these cool things and these pictures that he had on it. And I remember he had a picture of an Escalade, and he was like, yeah, you want me to send it to you? Because back then, of course, photo sharing wasn't popular. That was a really cool thing. And I was like, it was a really nice picture, and I was like, nah man, I think I'm good. And he was like, you don't want me to send you the picture? And I was like, nah man, I think I'm good. It was just kind of suspicious. He didn't know why I didn't want it. And so that summer, not only was my PSP broken, but my PlayStation 2, for some weird reason, it wasn't reading disc. So me and my cousin, he stayed with us for like a month, and we didn't do jack shit. Like, I swear to God, we watched like Wedding Crashers 1,000 times, and we would watch like Nickelodeon Gas and just watch TV all day. It was like one of our least eventful summers. So fast forward to the end of that summer, and the PSP saga is pretty much over. I've forgotten about it. I don't think I'm ever going to get a new one. I don't think my parents are ever going to find out, because what I did is I just kind of threw it in my junk drawer. And in the junk drawer, you had a bunch of paper, and there's a bunch of other loose leaf stuff that I didn't really care about, and I threw my PSP in there and just forgot about it at some point. Now, the problem with this is that was evidence, and I did not realize I was stashing evidence in the house with my parents, who still didn't know it was broken. So about 2 weeks before I started middle school, I'll never forget, my room was a mess because of course I was a kid, so there was just junk everywhere. And one day I was out of my room and my mom was cleaning my room, and I will never forget, I believe I was in the living room of this new house, and I heard the loudest, "Dominique!" And as soon as I heard that screeching sound of my name, I knew exactly what it was. She didn't have to say anything. I knew she found it. And she did one of those angry, like, "Come here!" Like, you know, when your mom is like, I'm talking about that "get over here," like scorpion type sound. Like, I knew exactly what it was. So I came in my room prepared to defend myself, and she was holding the PSP, and she was like, "Why is this broken?" And like I said earlier in this story, I was clearly on her suspect list from the start, because why would she grab this PSP and turn it on unless she suspected that it was broken? There would be absolutely no reason for her to do that. So, you know, at this point, I'm just trying to save my own life. And I was like, "What the freak happened to my PSP?" And I just busted out crying. And I wasn't crying because it was broken. I was crying because I got caught. But, you know, it put on enough of an act that I kind of threw them off again to whether they didn't know. And, you know, my dad comes in the room and he's like, "What's wrong?" And, you know, my mom shows him the PSP is broken. And, you know, this is about 9 months in, I believe. I broke it in September of 05, and this is August of 06. So my bad, this is actually 11 months in. And especially with what happened with John, I can't tell them now, so I have to double or, you know, quadruple down on the lie at this point. And remember, I said that it was in my junk drawer. So what I told him, I said, "Hey, it was in the drawer and it got crushed. That's what happened." And that was believable, because the drawer, it was really packed. And, you know, I was still in trouble because they were like, "You're really careless and this costs a lot of money." But here's the thing, again, my dad wanted to give me the benefit of the doubt. My mom, however, had lived through me just raging at video games all the time and slamming controllers and all this stupid stuff I used to do when I was a kid. So deep down, she knew I broke it. She knew I broke it, but my dad, he just wouldn't believe it. So she ended up taking the PSP from me, and she went ahead and sold it because she did a lot of online sales. So she sells it. And I believe probably within a year later we had this conversation, because I believe my mom was talking about my temper problems with the video games, and she brought it up. She was like, "Yeah, that's why I know you broke that PSP." And she said that with my dad there. And this was a while ago, so I don't remember exactly why I agreed with her, but I was like, "Yeah, you know, you're right," or whatever. I don't know why I agreed with her. And my dad was like, "Wait, so you really did break it?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, for some reason, I don't really think I was paying attention to what they were saying. I was just going with the flow. And so I accidentally admitted to my guilt. And my dad was like, "Wow, I really rolled with you on that. I really believe you didn't break it." So, but this was like a year later, so I wasn't really in trouble for it. And so that's the end of that story. And to be honest, even sitting here 12 years later, I'm so glad that I didn't get away with that, because, you know, that was a really expensive system that I tried to steal from a friend. And I take care of all my stuff now, so I still have a lot of stuff from like middle school and high school. And if I was still sitting here with that kid's PSP, stolen PSP from about 12 years ago, I would be like a full-blown Christian or something. Like, honestly, I would be trying to pray away my sins. I'm really, really glad like somebody was watching over me, because that would have been a really, really bad thing to get away with. But since we're here and hindsight is fun, if I had to guess my biggest mistake, it would be not getting rid of the evidence. See, what I should have done is, this house, it was right next to my elementary school at the time. And in between my school, my house was like, it was surrounded by trees. We pretty much lived right in front of a forest, really. It was trees for like acres all the way back and to the side. And to get away with this, all I had to do was go outside, find an excuse to go outside, like taking out the trash or something, and take that thing and either put it in the trash can where nobody would have ever looked, or just toss it into the forest and it would have never been heard from again. Again, all things I'm glad I didn't do, because that's a huge ass sin, bro. Like, I'm really glad I didn't do that. But yeah, if you get anything useful from this story, it's that your mom, she knows when you're bullshitting because yeah, she knew from the beginning that it was broken, because the fact that she was interrogating me and looking up serial numbers and trying to turn it on, yeah, she knew that thing was gone, man. She knew from the start. Anyways, that's the legend of the PSP. You guys wanted to hear the rest of the story, and I promised you it was gonna be interesting, so now you guys know that in a different lifetime, I was Leangelo Ball before Leangelo Ball. Anyways, if you enjoyed this, hit the like button, comment, and sub. Hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on future videos, and let me know if you enjoy this series, because I got other stories and other ideas and other topics that I think would be fun, so just let me know in the comment section. And if you have a wild story you feel like sharing, go ahead, because I'm pretty sure we all got some dirt. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.